What is up? This is the Chig coming at you with another Diablo 4 video with some messed up lighting because it's 2 a.m. and I can't figure out this green screen. Anyway, I'm going to go over the best barbarian leveling build in my opinion, and that's going to be Rend. And the reason being, we'll go over that in a second. Before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget, we're going to be giving away a copy of Diablo 4 or a video game of your choice after I hit 1,000 subscribers. Come hang out live over at twitch.tv/thechig on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. All right, let's hop right into this. So, the Rend Barbarian and why, while I'm showing you some gameplay here. The reason I think the Rend Barbarian is going to be the best way to level your Barbarian is as follows. The damage is obscene. You don't need any legendaries. Is that enough? Like, do you need more? Like, yeah, you don't need any aspects. All you need is some time and, you know, bleed them up and run away. That's literally it. So with this particular setup I'm using right now, I have it to where I'm using the capstone passive that makes it where my abilities cost more rage and deal more damage. So what I do is I just get like a full bar, dump one bleed, get a full bar, dump one bleed, and then move on. The benefit to doing it this way is I am using my one-handers to generate my fury, and I'm using my two-hander to spend it, right? So I'm getting the big bonk on the two-hand swing, and then I'm getting the fast bonks on the generator. As you can see right there, I literally just rended that guy and walked away from him and he died. I got a full bar. I mean, obviously you got to work on your positioning because like you just can't just like walk up and hit everybody. But like as long as you're paying attention where you're standing and you can use your lunging strike to reposition, it's just super easy and convenient, and it's super easy to play. And then when you see an elite, you just pop your coolies, and like you only really have to hit them with one thing, right? Like you melt stuff, right? Like, okay, cool, we're gonna get a full bar, we're gonna hit him, we're gonna get a full bar, we're gonna hit him, and you know, 2 Rends and he's dead, right? Rend stacks. So after you put a couple of bleeds on them, you can just keep moving and make sure you are yeah, you're always mobile. The only problem with it, and I say problem lightly because if we're speed running, it's not a problem at all, is the loot drops behind you, right? With some of the current leveling methods we're using, we don't get a lot of loot anyway. So like, oh, look at that one. Look at that one. 1 Rend took out that elite. Did you see that? 1 Rend. How sick was that, right? How sick. So, you know, we're using Death Blow as a fury generator. Obviously it's very strong. We're also using lunging strike as a generator and repositioning tool because lunging strike don't care. It will take you through the madness into wherever you need to be. So what you can do, or what I like to do, is once you get a pack of mobs that you're ready to kill, you pop all your cooldowns or whatever, leap in, pop your coolies, hit them, and then you just run away. And you know, if you hear something drop, obviously you can go back and grab it and see if it's an upgrade. But like, so bang, you just jump to the outside, jump to the inside, jump to the left, jump to the right, jump to wherever you need to reposition yourself to be able to put a Rend on them. And if you don't like having to stack up all the way on your Rend like that, all the way on your Fury to be able to dump a Rend to get extra damage on it and use less abilities, you can always switch over to the capstone passive that gives you more berserk time and more berserk damage, right? Because that's going to just make your play a little smoother. You're going to hit less hard, you're going to do less numbers, and your bleed kiting is going to suffer just a tad. However, you're not going to have to worry with that "I can't do that yet" line at all ever, because you basically are not struggling at all. Actually, I'm just going to keep those in my bag and go sell them, because why wouldn't I? So yeah, you're just going to be able to keep your bar full at all times. You're going to be able to run around and dump Rends whenever. Sometimes if I'm not using this particular setup, I will even use my one-handers to do the Rend just for the faster attack speed and being able to reposition faster. So there's a couple of different methods to doing it. They're all viable, they all work, they're all fun. Like, you're just leaping around and rending stuff. Like, it's super fun, super easy. It's really strong too. As long as you're being cognizant of what you're doing, it's really, really strong. You really do not struggle at all. You melt mobs out in the open world. All the leveling strategies that everybody's talking about right now, as far as doing strongholds and doing dungeons up until you're ready to do strongholds, and then farming the strongholds. Like, you just saw me knock this out in just a couple of minutes. This is the what is the name of this one? The Onyx Watchtower Stronghold. This is where I've been leveling since level 15, and at no point have I struggled. And look, no legendary powers at all, because you don't need them. It's literally, is your weapon damage good? Are you tanky enough to stay alive? Those are the two things you got to worry about. Get more tanky stats, get higher weapon damage. That's literally it. That's literally all you have to think about. And it just makes getting from 1 to 50 super easy, and then once you hit 50, it remains easy. You just start to get more legendary powers and things to make the playstyle better and easier and more fun and more fluid, right? So, like, it never actually gets difficult. It just smooths out. So let's go ahead and talk about the skills here. Super easy build, super easy claps, right? So first thing we're going to do, everybody knows lunging strike. Lunge forward, hit an enemy. Lucky hit chance 50%. Enhanced lunging strike has 30% increased damage and heals you for 2% maximum life when it damages a healthy enemy. That is enough reason by itself to be hopping around and hitting healthy enemies. The good thing about that is if you need fury, just hit something. I mean, the whole thing about being a barbarian is hit it very hard, right? So we're hitting them hard. You're going to grab rend enemies in front of you, dealing blah blah weapon damage, and then 96% bleeding damage over 5 seconds, which is huge. We're going to grab enhanced rend, dealing direct damage with rend extends the duration of vulnerability on enemies by 2 seconds. There's a lot of different ways to make vulnerability. Extending it, cool, we're just making our rend hit harder. Then we're going to do furious rend. Direct damage with rend grants 4 damage per enemy hit, up to a maximum of 20 fury. So basically you always want to be trying to hit at least 5 mobs. Are you always going to be able to hit 5 mobs? Probably not. But if you are able to hit 5 mobs, that's the sweet spot, because it's giving you back, more than half of the fury cost, because it costs 35 fury, right? So now that we're down here and we got those 3 points, we are going to pop back up and get battle lunging strike. Lunging strike also inflicts 20% bleed damage over 5 seconds. You can also get the one that gives you berserking for 1.5 seconds, but I like the extra bleeding damage. It kind of just helps out because all of your bleeds stack, right? So when we pop down here, you can grab Rallying Cry. Bellowing Rallying Cry, increasing your movement speed, which is amazing, giving you more resource generation to you and nearby allies for 6 seconds, which is awesome, right? So you're just going to basically be popping this on cooldown because it's going to keep your fury regeneration up. It's going to keep everything going. The only time after you get enhanced Rallying Cry, because it gives you unstoppable, the only time you wouldn't use it is if you're about to fight an elite that has a CC. So wind, fear, freeze, any of the ones that can CC you, you want to make sure you have a way out, right? Because we're not taking Berserker Rage. And then you also want to grab Tactical Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry generates 20 fury and grants you an additional 20% resource generation. So we're just doing all we can to get resource up because we want to be dumping Rends like mad. We're going to put 2 more points into Rend. Then we are going to go down here. We're going to grab War Cry, Bellow a Mighty War Cry, increasing damage dealt by a percentage for 6 seconds to you and nearby allies for 3 seconds. War Cry grants you Berserking. Berserking is the unique buff to Barbarians. It gives you basically all the stats, move speed, damage reduction, and everything. And then this is another choice you get to make. If you need to be more tanky, Mighty War Cry gives you base life as Fortify. If you don't need to be more tanky, if at least 6 enemies are nearby when you cast War Cry, it's increased by an additional 10%. So now instead of 5, we want 6 guys, because instead of 15%, we're going to get 25, which is amazing. And then what we are going to do to go ahead and roll on up is put 2 more points into Rend. And then we're going to pop down, and the very first thing we're going to grab here, in my opinion, you can do 2 things. You can grab Deathblow first and then Hamstring. I suggest getting Hamstring first and then Deathblow, because by this point you may have some things that say deal extra damage to slowed enemies, do this, do that, and as soon as you hit level 15 you're going to go do your warrior quest, which is going to give you access to the arsenal system, which I will show you real quick because now is a great time to plug this. So when you look at your expertise, two-handed sword expertise, you have to level two-handed swords to level 1, which is super easy. Grab a two-handed sword and smack stuff with it. When it's in your technique slot, you get to choose it, and it makes it where anything you hit makes them bleed. So it doesn't matter what the attack is, it makes them bleed. As long as you deal them damage, they're bleeding, right? So everything we do is going to inflict extra bleed damage, but the coup de grace, the big thing to remember there, is when it's bleeding, it's going slower. When it's going slower, it's considered CC'd. When it's considered CC'd, most of the items in the game have some form of, if this mob is CC'd or slowed or bleeding, it deals more damage or deals less damage. So this is amazing. Alright, so after you pick up your first point in each of these, you're going to grab Enhanced Deathblow. Deathblow deals increased damage to bosses, which is just amazing. You just use it on cooldown. And then you're going to grab Fighter's Deathblow. Deathblow damages at least one enemy, gain 20 Fury. You basically use it on cooldown, so it's a great Fury generator. It's got a short cooldown, it's 15 seconds, so like a lot of times it will kill a trash mob. So if you get lucky and you kill a trash mob, it gets a reset and you just get to spam the button, right? You can hold it down until it goes on cooldown and then start rending, because it will kill trash mobs. You saw me kill a couple there in the gameplay. After that, you want to make sure that Rend is full. Rend should be at 4. Nope, Rend's at 5. Okay, so since Rend is full, we're going to finish out Deathblow. So we're going to pop up to 4. We're going to grab Call the Ancients. So call 3 Ancients aid you in battle. Korlik leaps at enemies, dealing damage, and swings his weapons at a frenzy, dealing damage per hit, which is awesome to watch. Talik spins in a whirlwind, rapidly attacking enemies for 65 damage, which is also freaking awesome. And then Madoc upheaves the ground, dealing big damage. So all of those are just fun to watch, so try not to get too distracted. Prime Call of the Ancients. While Call of the Ancients is active, you get 20% increased attack speed and 10% increased damage. So you just get stronger. It's just a DPS cooldown. And then Supreme Call of the Ancients. Each of the Ancients has an additional power. Korlik, the one that attacks really fast, you get 10 Fury every time he deals damage to an enemy with his Frenzy. Talik, he slows enemies for 1 second when he damages them with Whirlwind. And Madoc has a chance to stun enemies. So basically 2 CCs and extra Fury regeneration. What you can also do, if you like, you can grab Wrath of the Berserker. So this has a shorter cooldown, Call the Ancients does. But Wrath of the Berserker explodes into a rage, knocking back surrounding enemies, gaining Berserking and Unstoppable for 5 seconds. The next 10 seconds, dealing direct damage with a basic skill, grants Berserking for 5 seconds. So you can grab that, and it's just going to extend out and just, you know, you're going to get 10 seconds. It's basically kind of lining you up with 50 seconds instead of 60, but you kind of get the point there. And then you grab Prime Wrath of the Berserker. While Wrath of the Berserker is active, gain 20% increased movement speed and increased Fury regeneration by 30%, which is amazing. So you run around faster and you build Fury faster. Supreme Wrath of the Berserker. While Wrath of the Berserker is active, every Fury you spend increases its damage by 25%. So there's a couple of ways to extend Wrath of the Berserker, so you just increase your damage while you have it. Later on, once you hit level 50, you do switch these around anyway, so that's some food for thought. But anyway, after you get your ultimate, we're going to go ahead and put 1 point into Tempered Fury, increases your maximum Fury by 3, and then we are going to put 3 points into Invigorating Fury. Heal 9% of your maximum life for every 100 Fury you spend. Super Fury hungry all the time, so it's going to be super easy to keep that up all the time. Alright, so we're going to go back up here. We're going to pop 1 more point into Deathblow because Deathblow is just good. We're going to pop a point into Pit Fighter, 2 points into Pit Fighter because I can't count. And we're going to go down here, and this is where we're going to talk about this for a second. So once you have a lot of good stats, Gushing Wound is good once you have a lot of critical strike chance because it makes you deal more bleed damage, which is amazing. And then when you overpower a bleeding enemy, they blow up. Awesome, awesome, awesome. But you have to have really good gear for that to scale. What I was using in the video was Unbridled Rage. Core skills deal 135 extra damage, but cost 100 more fury. So my Rend, instead of costing 35, was costing 70. But it was dealing almost 300% weapon damage. Maybe a little over. I'm not going to do that math right now. But if you do not want to play with Unbridled Rage, what you can do instead is use Unconstrained. Increase Berserk's maximum duration by 5 seconds and increase the damage bonus by 25%. So when you do Wrath of the Berserker, or when you hit with something else that gives you Berserking, all the other abilities that give you Berserking, your shout that gives you Berserking, your damage is just flat increased all the time because you're Berserking, which is amazing. You can do Walking Arsenal, but it's really hard to keep it up all the time because you have to have abilities to switch through all 3 weapon types. You got to do, well, not all 3, just your 2-handed bludgeoning and 2-handed slashing, which is okay if you want to, set one to like your leaping strike, set one to your rend, but like it only does it for 6 seconds, right? So you're only going to get a couple of attacks with each one. I mean, obviously you can keep it stacked, but it's a little harder, but it's going to give you 25% increased damage at all times. It's just ease of play for Unconstrained and Unbridled Rage. My 2 pennies. With that, this is going to be where you're going to be at when you hit level 50 or level 35. It's going to be level 25 once you have all 10 of your extra points. So at this point, what we're going to do is turn around and go back and just start filling in the useful passives in places, right? So you can basically just go up from here and just run back up, right? So you're going to finish out Pit Fighter. We're going to be 3 of 3. You deal 9% increased damage to close enemies and gain 6% distance damage reduction. That's just quality of life. And you're going to put 3 points into Cut to the Bone, which follows off of Hamstring. Your bleeding effects deal an extra 18% damage to vulnerable enemies. This makes your vulnerable damage scale really hard because you're already at 20% base. This is going to give you 18% base, and then everything else you get that's a multiplier to your vulnerable damage is just going to make it stronger, period. Right? So that is amazing. Another option you have, and I'm not saying do this or don't do this, but something I do sometimes just because it's fun, is switch around some of these other points to get 1 point into Outburst and then 3 points into Tough as Nails. You get more thorns and it makes them bleed when you hit them with thorns. So moving back up, we are going to go ahead and just grab Booming Voice ×3, Raid Leader ×3, and Guttural Yell ×3. So Booming Voice increases the duration of your shouts by 24%, which is huge. Raid Leader makes it where each second that your shouts are active, you heal for 3% of your maximum life, not base life, maximum life. So if you're stacking life, this is a huge heal every second, so you just alternate your shouts. And then Guttural Yell, your shout skills cause enemies to deal 12% less damage for 5 seconds. So if you're alternating your shouts, your enemies are just always dealing less damage. We will put 1 point into Aggressive Resistance, gain 3% damage reduction while berserking, but that is to give us 3 points into Prolific Fury. While berserking, Fury generation is increased by 18%. We're berserking a lot, so we want to make sure we're taking full advantage of that all we can. We also want to just throw 4 more points into Rallying Cry because Rallying Cry is just good. It gives us more resource generation. And just see it goes up 4% every time we want it. Like, that's a lot. So 56% more. So, just 50% more resource generation for yelling at things. It's amazing. And then we are going to pop back up here. We are going to put, I think it's that one. No, it is not. We want to put 3 points in a pressure point. There it is. Your core skills have a 10% chance to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. So that just means your Rend has a 30% chance on lucky hit to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds, which stacks really well with the other things because it extends vulnerable and it deals more damage to vulnerable because the rest of your tree. So this is what Rend looks like at level 50. This is going to get you started in the Nightmare Dungeons. this is going to be just smacking stuff for you. The cool part is, this is normally the part of the video where I say, all right, cool, now we need to go to this dungeon and get these aspects and do these things and put it on this gear. But you don't have to do any of that with this build. You just put the build together, make sure you're tanky, make sure you have high weapon damage. That is it. You don't have to worry about other stats. Obviously get things that are useful, but weapon damage and tanky, that's all that matters. So do that, right? Put thorns here and there just to help, like to kill baby mobs so you don't have to smack them with a rend or whatever, but like just do that, right? And then, you know, vulnerable damage where you can get it, tanky where you can get it, weapon damage. That's literally all you have to worry about. And then as you're doing these dungeons, you know, as you do your first couple of nightmare dungeons, just use whatever aspects you get. Go get some of the tanky ones, go get some of the ones that do X, Y, and Z. There's one that does like extra thorns damage or has a chance to blow up for thorns damage. Grab that one. Grab the one that makes it disobedience is really good for this because you're making everything bleed, so to have your armor up all the time. But none of it is required to level up as long as you're playing the build properly. Position yourself properly, swing your two-hander, make them bleed, level up like a boss, and yeah, that's all you got to do. That's all I got for you on the Barbarian. I kind of ramble with the Barbarian because it's my most experienced class in every game. I have thousands of hours on this one. If you have any questions, any suggestions on what I should play for the season, which is coming up quick, let me know in the comments down below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in Sanctuary. Peace!